You know, some stories are more than just tales you tell around a campfire. They feel real, like warnings. And tonight, we're going deep into one of those places, the desolate Telgaon forest. It's a place where a full moon doesn't bring light. It just shows you all the horrors hiding in the dark. This is one story you're gonna want to pay attention to, assuming you make it to the end.
Yeah, that's the demand at the heart of this whole thing. It's a chilling ultimatum from a spirit who will stop at absolutely nothing to be made whole again. And believe me, that isn't just a threat. It's a promise. So, let's find out who is unlucky enough to hear those words. Okay, so picture this. It all kicks off on a deserted road, with a big, bright full moon hanging overhead. Our narrator is on his bike with his two buddies, Suresh and Ajay. The forest is dead silent. The road is completely empty. You know that kind of quiet that feels peaceful for a second, and then it just feels wrong? Well, for them, that quiet was about to be shattered. Forever.
And this right here is where the night takes a nosedive. It starts off so normal, just pulling over for a quick break. Ajay wanders off across the road. A few seconds pass, and then they realize he's just gone. They start calling his name, thinking he's just messing around. But then they hear it, a real, terrified, blood-curdling scream that tells them one thing. Their friend is in very, very serious trouble. So pure panic sets in. They bolt into the trees, just running towards the sound of Ajay's desperate cries for help. And what they find confirms their absolute worst fears. The ground is all torn up. There are these clear drag marks heading deeper into the woods, and they're stained with fresh blood. This is the moment they realize Ajay didn't just wander off. Something took him. That bloody trail leads them to something that has no business being there, right in the middle of this dark, dense forest. An old, two-story wooden cottage, just rotting away. Now, our narrator, he's determined to find his friend. But Suresh, he's completely paralyzed with fear. He's convinced they're not dealing with a person. It's something else. Pushing through that fear, they shove their way inside. The first floor is just ruin, dust, decay, the works. But the screams, they came from upstairs. As they start climbing this creaky old staircase, something stops them dead in their tracks. A thick, dark liquid is seeping through the floorboards right above their heads. It's blood, dripping down from the ceiling. Okay, so they brace themselves, they rush up to the second floor and find a scene from an actual nightmare. There's a body hanging upside down from the rafters. It's Ajay. But even in the dim light, they can see something is terribly, horribly wrong. The body is headless. Just as their minds are trying to make sense of this horror, they hear Ajay's voice. It's weak, but it's definitely him, coming from a dark corner of the room. For a split second, maybe there's hope. Maybe that body isn't his. They swing their flashlights over, and they see a figure, a woman in a dark sari with her back to them. As she slowly turns, the light reveals the impossible, horrifying truth. The woman has no head, and sitting in her lap, speaking to them, is Ajay's severed head. And then, in a blink and you'll miss it moment of pure horror, the headless woman lifts Ajay's head and places it onto her own neck. It just grotesquely attaches itself. And then she smiles at them with their friend's face. The two of them, they don't hesitate. They turn and run for their lives. But this nightmare is a long way from being over. Our narrator is just booking it through the forest when he realizes he's alone. He looks back, and what he sees just chills him to the bone. Suresh, he's just walking, like a man in a trance, heading straight back towards that cursed cottage. He's screaming at him, telling him to run, but Suresh is just gone, completely under the ghost's control. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing he can do but watch as Suresh walks right back into that horrifying room. The ghost, still wearing Ajay's head, just looks on. And then, in this final gruesome act, Suresh picks up a knife, grabs his own hair, and decapitates himself. His body just collapses as his head falls right into his own hand. And just like that, slam, the door shuts. He's trapped. There's nowhere to go. The ghost, now wearing his friend's head, has him cornered. But instead of killing him, she starts to talk. And he realizes, to save his own life, he has to listen. He has to understand why this is all happening. And this is where we learn the tragedy behind the terror. See, she wasn't always this monster. She was just a woman on vacation with her husband. 3 drunk campers tricked their way inside her home. When her husband came back from fishing,
They murdered him for trying to protect her. And then, in a final act of just senseless, drunken brutality, they decapitated her. So her vengeance, it's all coming from this feeling of being incomplete. And this gets into a really powerful idea you see in ghost stories all over the world, the unquiet grave. Her soul is trapped because of how she died and because she wasn't buried properly. Her killers buried her body under a tree, but they just chucked her head into a pond nearby. So without her head, her soul can't rest. And all that rage is aimed at any group of 3 young men she finds in her forest. A twisted, horrifying echo of her own killers. So she gives him the ultimatum: find my head, bring it back to my body so I can be properly cremated, or you're next. So now the narrator has to completely shift gears. This is no longer about running and screaming. This is about survival through problem solving. His life literally depends on it. I mean, think about it. You can't just dive into a murky pond and hope for the best. He has to be smart. He remembers the ghost said her killers were talking about frying fish, so they must have gone to the pond. He finds a spot on the bank that looks likely. And then, in this moment of just total brilliance under pressure, he finds a coconut that's about the same size and weight as a human head, throws it in, and uses that to figure out a search area. So for 2 straight hours, can you imagine? He's just diving down over and over into the cold, dark water, feeling around in the mud at the bottom. His hands are just combing through silt and weeds. And then he feels it, that smooth, hard curve of bone. He found it. A human skull, half buried in the muck. He takes the skull, carries it back to that banyan tree that Ghost told him about. He digs and digs until he uncovers the rest of her skeleton. With his hands trembling, he places the skull where it belongs, finally reuniting her body after all these years. Then he builds a funeral pyre and sets it on fire, giving her the final rites she was denied. So he just stands there, watching the flames consume the bones. And out of the smoke and the fire, he sees this spectral form rise up into the night sky. The ghost, finally whole, finally at peace, just fades away. The curse is broken. He runs out of that forest and swears he will never, ever go back. So our narrator survived. He did what the spirit wanted, and he freed her from her torment. But you gotta wonder, right? It leaves you with this one final haunting question. An evil act created that ghost. And sure, her soul might be at peace now. But does the stain of that kind of brutality ever really wash away? Or is there still a piece of that curse just lingering, waiting in the shadows of the Telgaon forest?